sporting event. Look, we're in quite big trouble, aren't we?
You're making a fair point, but it's,
I'm making it quite strongly.
You've got the biggest Muslim population in Britain, in Birmingham.
Oh, so we changed the law.
And you've got people who are very, very militant and very...
Quasi, I feel that's...
You've also got
people
coming from Israel. But you've got to be pragmatic.
I'm going to cross now.
If there's an issue, the police guy has to deal with it.
I'm going to cross now to our newsreader, Sam Francis, who will tell us exactly what John Healey is saying in the House of Commons live right now.
Nigel, thank you. Yes, that's right. Let's take you live now to scenes inside the House of Commons, where the Defence Secretary John Healey is giving a statement following news of the UK supporting US operations.
December, after which the US Coast Guard vessel Monroe pursued the ship across the Atlantic. This is a sanctioned, stateless vessel which carries a long history of nefarious activity and shares close links with both Iran and Russia. Following a request from the US, I authorised the use of UK bases and the deployment of Royal Navy and RAF assets to support the operation, including airborne surveillance and the RFA ship Tide Force. This was a US operation. No UK personnel took part in the boarding. And I can update the House, Mr. Speaker, the operation is ongoing, but the Bella 1 is now under the control of US forces who demonstrated immense courage and professionalism in dangerous and deteriorating Atlantic Sea conditions. A stateless vessel, Mr. Speaker, may be lawfully intercepted and subjected to the law of the interdicting state. The US's enforcement action was based upon counter-Iran sanctions aimed at stopping Iran from fueling instability through the profits of illegal oil sales. The UK supported this action to achieve three objectives. First, to enforce counter-Iran sanctions. Second, to tackle the global security threat posed by expanding shadowy maritime activity. And third, to reinforce British homeland defence and security in this era of rising threats. Mr. Speaker, let me expand. First, in 2024, this vessel was sanctioned by the US and subjected to a seizure warrant for illegally transporting Iranian oil. It reflagged 5 times in the last 5 years and was falsely flying the Guyana ensign when it was intercepted by the US. Over a 4-year period, reports suggest that this vessel moved some 7.3 million barrels of Iranian crude oil, the proceeds of which have used to finance terrorism, threat, and instability across the world. And the Iranian regime continues to export violence across the region through its proxies and its partners, including Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Iraqi militias. It maintains support for Russia by supplying Putin with weapons for his brutal invasion of Ukraine, including the Shahid mass drones and missiles which target and kill Ukrainian civilians. And it is telling, of course, that this vessel, in an attempt to evade the seizure warrant, changed its name and tried to adopt the Russian flag. Second, Mr. Speaker, the UK also supported this military operation to counter the expanding global security threat. The vessel is part of an increasing web of shadow shipping that fuels and funds instability across the world, that undermines global trade, and that threatens our national security. We know Russia operates a vast shadow fleet of its own to bankroll its illegal invasion of Ukraine. And last year, it's estimated that Russia sold $100 billion worth of sanctioned oil, money directly funding attacks on Ukrainian citizens, such as the onslaught during Christmas, involving 600 missiles and drones, which killed at least 3 people. We owe it to the Ukrainians to step up action on these shadow operations, and we are. This is why we're deterring, we're disrupting, we're degrading the Russian shadow fleet as a priority for this government. And to date, we've imposed sanctions on 544 vessels. According to estimates, sanctions against the shadow fleet by the UK and our partners have forced 200 ships off the seas, almost half of the Russia shadow fleet's overall capacity. While Russia's critical oil revenues are now down 27% compared to October in 2024. This is the lowest since the start of its full-scale invasion. So let me speak plainly, Mr. Speaker. The UK will not stand by as malign activity increases on the high seas, and alongside our allies, we are stepping up our response against shadow vessels, and we will continue to do so. Third, Mr. Speaker, this is not just about international security, but about the threats to British national security too. Iran presents not only a persistent danger to security in the Middle East, but to us here in the UK. It poses a significant espionage threat, it sustains an aggressive cyber attack campaign against us, and as our own House of Commons Intelligence Security Committee reported, since 2022, the Iranian regime has plotted at least 15 assassination or kidnap attempts on British soil.
We're living in a time of what feels like pretty significant social change, and it makes us question things that we've even taken for granted for decades. And one of those at the moment that people are wondering about is actually money. Is the money in your bank account safe? Should you be investing elsewhere? Are we looking at a potential global crash? What will it mean for your savings? Is there a way that you could be using your money that might be outside of government control even? Well, TallyMoney is potentially one solution. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by the CEO and founder of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. What is TallyMoney?
Well, at TallyMoney, you basically get gold you can spend. So we give people an individual account in their name, everyday account. They get a sort code, an account number. They use that account just like they would pounds from their bank, but it's milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. Why would you do that, though? What is the benefit to the customer instead of just having a normal pound sterling account?
Gold's performance against the pound is above 11% per annum over the last 25 years on average. But we still need money in our daily lives, and we have savings. We know that it's good common sense and prudent to save up for things, not just living credit. You know, whether it's a holiday or a rainy day, your retirement planning, you need to have money in your life, basically, that you can rely on, that's dependable, that nobody meddles with, that nobody can weaponize against you, which is another element of government control when it's the government currency, which we could talk about another time. And it should be pretty simple and straightforward, and that's what we deliver at Tally. And really, we just want people to feel safe and happy with their money. There was a time when the bigger your bank balance, the more confident you felt. Now it's like, I need to do something with it. I can't leave it there. In Tally, you can.
Okay, brilliant. Cameron Parry from TallyMoney, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bev.
Meanwhile, more widely across Europe, we're seeing a pattern of flagrant maritime activity coordinated by Russia. So I applaud and welcome the fact that the Finnish authorities seized a Russian shadow vessel suspected of damaging a communications cable under the Gulf of Finland last week. And we've exposed the Russian spy ship Yantar operating in our waters, surveying our undersea cables. And of course, by assisting our US allies in taking this ship off the seas, we are protecting the British people and our nation. So this is a stark reminder that our world is changing, it is less predictable and more dangerous. And this operation and the Shadow Fleet show the global links between the security threats faced by the UK and its allies. And the Shadow Fleet itself is vital to Putin's ongoing illegal invasion and war in Ukraine, which brings me on to the second topic in this single statement. Because next month, we enter the 5th year of Putin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Yet the Ukrainian people still fight with huge courage and defiance, the military and civilian alike. And I'm proud to say that this House remains united for Ukraine, that Britain remains united for Ukraine. Yeah. We know that if Putin prevails, he won't stop at Ukraine. And we know that a secure Europe depends on a strong, sovereign Ukraine. And I'm also proud of the UK's leadership on Ukraine. It started under the last government and stepped up under this government. So now we, the UK, lead the 50-nation-strong Ukraine Defence Contact Group alongside Germany and secured £50 billion worth in military aid pledges last year. And we, with France, lead the Coalition of the Willing, undertaking detailed military planning to help secure peace for the long term when a deal is agreed. And I say to this House, let's make 2026 the year that peace is not only possible, but the year that peace is achieved. And this government is leading that push for peace. This government is building the New Deal for European security. And that's why in Paris yesterday, Mr. Speaker, at what was the largest yet meeting of the Coalition of the Willing, with 39 nations, my right honourable friend the Prime Minister, alongside President Macron and President Zelensky, signed a declaration of intent. And as the Prime Minister said, the purpose of the Coalition of the Willing is to help deliver a peace that can last and to work with the US to guarantee Ukraine's security for the long term. This work is now more advanced than ever, he said. And yesterday's declaration advances that work significantly. It confirms that the UK and France will take a leading role, first in using military, economic and diplomatic instruments to ensure the conclusion of a peace agreement. Second, in supporting the development of Ukraine's defence capabilities. And third, in commanding a multinational force for Ukraine, which plans to deploy to Ukraine after a ceasefire has been agreed. Mr. Speaker, the MFU plans to deploy units from nations in the Coalition of the Willing to carry out defence and deterrence operations in the air, on the land and at sea, to conduct training, planning, recovery and regeneration of Ukrainian forces. The UK and France will also create military hubs to support this work across the country and to build protected facilities within Ukraine for weapons and equipment. Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister said today, if there were a decision to deploy under this agreement that was signed yesterday, that matter will be brought to the House for debate beforehand and for a vote on that deployment. So yesterday, at this largest meeting of the Coalition of the Willing, we agreed further significant steps, including the signing of a joint declaration. We will also participate in US-led monitoring and verification of any ceasefire. We will support the long-term provision of armaments for Ukraine's defence.
Well, just hearing there from the Defence Secretary John Healey on the UK's backing of a US operation to seize a Russian-flagged oil tanker, part of Putin's so-called shadow fleet. You can, of course, scan the QR code there on your screen to continue watching that on GB News 2. For now, though, for all the reaction, let's go back to Nigel in Westminster.
Describe these commitments.
Sam Francis, thank you. Little doubt in my mind that John Healey, of all the front bench, actually delivers messages in the clearest and crispest way. He's actually very, very good.
I thought it was a very effective statement.
Yeah. Let's just take that in two parts. The first part, I thought the argumentation, Kwasi, for why British assets were used in this operation, his explanation of what actually has been happening with modern-day piracy on the high seas with Iran, Russia. I have to say, I thought it was not just well delivered, but I thought the content was absolutely right.
Whoever drafted the statement, I thought did a very good job. It was a civil servant, and obviously the minister would have had input. The most important thing he said was that the Americans requested
Yes.
Yes.
And you and I know that if the Americans request something of the British government, there's no way. I mean, I think Harold Wilson, maybe 50 years ago, said he wasn't going to send troops to Vietnam, but it never happens. Yeah. And we basically say yes. But what was skillful about Healey's statement was that he didn't mention the Americans. He talked about British interests. He talked about British security. He very graciously said that the Tory government had led the way in terms of supporting Ukraine. So in a statement like that, I mean, you could.
Well, that I think. I mean, I'm going to keep this in two separate parts, if I may.
Okay.
You know, the first part on British action, American action, British action today. On that, do we all agree he was solid and good?
Yes, it was a very good statement. I mean, as I said earlier, I felt instinctively comfortable that they were doing the right thing. Having heard the statement, I'm even more certain that
But the point I was trying to make, the viewers should understand, was that it was a very skillful House of Commons statement.
It was.
Because there are lots of people on his side that are deeply sceptical about the US, deeply sceptical about...
Hence he avoided that.
And so he avoided that. I thought that was very nicely done.
On the second bit, Kwasi, on Ukraine, I mean, there was some nonsense in there, wasn't there? You know, we're leading the push for peace. No, we're not. We're not even involved. Then he boasted about the coalition of the willing. 39 of them in the room. Only 2 are sending
So this
troops.
phrase, I wish
nonsense.
it would be the coalition of the willing. I mean, you don't have a coalition of the unwilling. I mean, it's a meaningless phrase. And I don't know where it came. I don't know where it came about, but people use it all the time. It doesn't really clarify anything. But what I thought it was a skillful statement in the House was that he was trying to bring all sides and create a kind of consensus. Yeah, which I think he did quite effectively.
Well, I think having done the first bit first about allowing the Americans to use assets and supporting them. I mean, Nick, the one thing that struck me last night, looking at the statements that came from Paris, and indeed from what's been said in the House of Commons today, is that actually Britain, the European Union, when it comes to any peace process between Ukraine and Russia, are pretty irrelevant.
Well, I have to be honest with you, I'm pretty sceptical that there's any prospect of peace anytime soon in the Ukraine conflict. I don't know how and when this does possibly come to an end, but I think that the Prime Minister is right, and has been during the course of the last year, to make clear that Britain feels some sense of engagement with this, that European security is our security, that if it's going to be necessary for European troops to go in afterwards, we are going to be part of that. And I think that
us and the French and nobody else.
No, but it was inevitable.
It's a start. It's a start. I mean, I know as well as you do that one takes a large pinch of salt when listening to this sort of stuff. But it's setting a direction. It's expressing an intent and making a commitment. Now, the Russians say they're not prepared to tolerate European troops in Ukraine. I don't see any way of getting any sort of lasting peace without European troops in Ukraine. I don't think European troops in a buffer zone that possibly grows out of the Donbass region.
Would you be happy if you were in the House of Commons now, and if the proposal was that we and the French, let's say a peace deal did happen, and I rather agree with you, it looks some way off. Let's just say, hypothetically, peace deal is struck, you get to vote in the House of Commons that we and the French send in peacekeeping troops. Would you vote for that?
Not if it's simply an Anglo-French effort, because we don't, between us, have enough resources to do that.
But let's be real, okay? Yeah. Someone's going to have to enforce them. If there is a peace deal, and I think I agree with both of you that it's unlikely imminently, but it could happen. If there is a peace deal, that has to be enforced. Someone has to be able to enforce the deal. Yes. And now we know where Donald Trump is, and we know that he wants the Europeans to put skin in the game, as it were, in terms of guaranteeing peace. Yeah. So the Americans, are probably maybe involved, but we can't guarantee that. So once you've taken the Americans out of the picture, who else is there? They're not going to have German troops for lots of reasons in Ukraine. No. I think that's very unlikely.
Well, no,
and so you're left...
They've been Russia's best client for years.
Well, they're historic...
Well, come on.
They're a historic sensitivity. So essentially, you've got, by process of elimination, you've got the British and the French. Yeah. We're the only ones with the capability to be able to drive something. I think the argument... It's not exclusively on us, but I think we have to be...
Where I agree with Nick, I don't think we do have the capability right at the moment.
To do it ourselves.
We neither have the manpower nor the kit to do it.
We don't at the moment.
No, okay, we've got to take a leading position.
A lot happening.
That's the point, and I think
we will wait for Ambassador Bolton, who hopefully will be here very soon. I have to just say this. I discussed the West Midlands Police. It was truncated, but the West Midlands Police say there's been no conspiracy, and they reiterated the decision to ban Israeli football fans was based on safety. Well, there you are. Let's